Think about the last time you noticed something worrisome going on in your body. Unusual fatigue, a persistent ache, a strange rash, or in the era of COVID, the dreaded realization that you can't taste your meal. Whether you scour the internet for answers or go to the doctors, there's almost always a period of time between noticing that something's going wrong in your body and figuring out what exactly is causing the worrisome symptoms. Now, think about what this period of time, while you wait for a diagnosis, is like. One thing's for sure, it is not fun. Being uncertain of what's going wrong in your body can, at a minimum, put you in a state of unease. But usually, this period of time is mercifully short, so we don't think that much about it. Now, I want to focus on what happens when that period of time of waiting for answers goes on and on and on. What I'm referring to is what doctors call medically unexplained symptoms, or MUS for short. MUS refers to any symptom that we don't have a complete causal explanation of. And common MUSs include symptoms like fatigue, chronic pain, and in the case of COVID long haulers, brain fog. As someone who's lived with unexplained chronic pain for the past 2 years, I know how hard it is to treat symptoms without a clear diagnosis. In fact, roughly 20 to 30% of primary care visits end with this label. MUSs also disproportionately impact people of color and members of other marginalized groups, which suggests that whose symptoms are classified as medically unexplained are shaped by unjust social structures and practices. Now, it's clear that MUSs pose challenges to physical well-being, but what's less obvious are the psychological challenges of having an MUS. Many live with MUSs for years, if not for the rest of their lives. And when MUSs last for prolonged periods of time, they can undermine your sense of self or your identity. There's a lot of things we mean when we talk about identity. But for now, just think of the traits, relationships, maybe commitments that go into making you, you, the things that make you who you are. MUSs can undermine your identity in at least 3 ways. First, it can make you doubt your reliability as a guide to your own experiences. Second, it can make it difficult to plan for the future. Third, it can make it unclear how you should think of yourself in relation to others, especially in terms of what identity groups you're a part of. Okay, so let's go back to the first point, that having an MUS can make you doubt your reliability as a guide to your own experience. To see that why this is so, you need to understand that MUSs are often invisible, in the sense that we don't have objective measures or tests to prove that the symptoms are quote unquote really there. And this means that identifying MUS relies heavily on self-reports. So imagine telling someone you've been experiencing something, especially something that you claim is physical, like intense, persistent pain in your legs. But when they ask what's wrong, you don't have an answer. It's not surprising that you might be met with suspicion that there really is an issue with your legs after all. Having an MUS involves confronting this skepticism from all corners, from doctors to colleagues, and unfortunately, sometimes even from friends and family. The more skepticism you're met with, the greater the chances you're going to internalize that skepticism, to the point where you yourself might start to question whether there really is anything wrong with your legs after all. By making you question whether you're accurately understanding what's happening to you, having an MUS can make you doubt if you should trust yourself and your ability to make sense of your experiences. Having an MUS can also get in the way of what philosophers call diachronic agency. Your diachronic agency consists in your ability to make and follow through with plans, from everyday things like picking up a friend at the airport to life-defining projects, goals, and aspirations. MUS can get in the way because you don't know if the symptoms will clear up or persist. MUSs also tend to be intermittent, meaning they're symptoms that come and go. The instability of when the symptoms present themselves makes it uncertain what you'll be able to do in the future, since even though you have good evidence that you may not be able to do the things that you plan to do, you also don't know if and when you'll experience the symptoms again. Besides the obvious practical reasons why this barrier to planning is problematic, it's also problematic on a deeper level, since an important part of who we are and how we think of ourselves lies in the future, in our ability to plan and project ourselves into that future. MUSs can also make you uncertain about how you fit into the social world. As social creatures, we care a lot about our relationships, at the one-on-one level, but also at the level of the social groups we belong to. Whether it's your religion, race, gender, or nationality, the groups we belong to shape who we are, and the labels or categories we use to describe ourselves and that others use to describe us are so powerful because they carry with them information about who we are and how we're positioned in society. But when you have an MUS, it can feel unclear how to label or categorize your experiences. Since even though I've been using the label medically unexplained as if it's a meaningful category, it's ultimately just a label we use when we don't know what label to use. This lack of a meaningful category makes it difficult to think about and communicate who you are, both to yourself and to others. Instead of trying to come up with a distinctive identity category, a different solution is to understand MUSs, especially those that last a long time, as disabilities. Thinking of MUSs as disabilities could help with some of the challenges to identity talked about earlier. First, disabled persons are often in a better position to understand what it's like to have testimony about their own body met with suspicion. Finding community with those who share the experience of having this kind of testimony dismissed may help those with MUSs fend off doubts about their own reliability. Understanding MUSs as disabilities could also make it easier to seek accommodations that would help lessen how much the symptoms get in the way of your ability to plan by allowing for more flexibility in those plans. Finally, understanding MUSs as disabilities makes it easier to see that the degree to which having an MUS disrupts your sense of self is by no means inevitable, since the ways that MUS challenges your identity are often tied to problematic ideas about what health and illness should look like, assumptions and ideas that the disability rights movement is already striving to change. So there are good reasons to include MUSs as disabilities, but taking on board this suggestion brings with it complex questions. For example, at what point after last experiencing your symptoms are you no longer disabled? And how can we know that the symptoms are really gone, or if they've just calmed down for a bit? Should all MUSs be categorized as disabilities? And if not, how do we distinguish between those that should and shouldn't? These are just a few of the many questions raised by thinking about the relationship between MUSs and disability. And unfortunately, I don't have answers for you today. But they're questions that deserve our attention, since considering MUSs as disabilities has far-reaching consequences for the many living with MUSs, as well as for society's perception of, scientific research on, and public policy about people with MUSs. Thank you.